All right, what is up, Blue Grit Nation? Those listening in, I appreciate you. If you're a follower of Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram, if you're subscribing to the posts, the blog, bluegritwellness.com, and then now Blue Grit Radio. So let's get into it. This is the third and final main installment of the interview series I'm doing. So if you got your interviews, then listen up. If you're testing with a friend and you're going through the process together, share this out, because the separation is in the preparation, as they, quote, say. So the last piece, I'm going to talk about two other types of interview questions. We are talking about behavior-based interview questions and scenario-based interview questions. And so this is the down and dirty. I'm going to shoot from the hip just to get the information out to you. Life happens, work happens, additional duties, but this is something I'm passionate about. I want to help us all find better cops, and I want you all who are good candidates to show your best self forward so you can go through the process, fly through the process, get through academy, get on those mean streets, and start helping us out. All right. So behavioral-based questions. This is where the interview panel or the interviewer will ask you about something you've done as a means to show your breadth of experience, to show your mindset, to show your decision-making abilities, to show your character, right? So this is what it looks like. Tell us about a time when you blank. Right? Tell us about a time when you had a difficult situation. Tell us about a time when you had an ethical dilemma. And usually this is a three-part question, and thus this is a three-part answer, right? So tell us about the time when you blank, what happened, what did you do, and what was the result, right? So that's important. Whenever you're given a question, whether you think you're ready, you think you heard it right, take that moment of pause. Listen to the question. If you missed a part of it, that's okay. Just take a moment and ask if you can repeat the last part of the question or clarify what this means, etc. Right? The last thing you want to do is answer the wrong question or a different question. Accuracy is important, just like everything in the process. So here's an example. Tell us about a time when you had a difficult decision to make. What was the decision? What did you do? And what was the result? Take your moment of pause. Think about a difficult decision. Think about the steps that you did. And tell us about the outcome. As you're thinking about this, your mind might be racing to all different kinds of places. When you were a kid, last week, you're trying to find the best answer. Well, this is where the preparation matters. Regardless of what the question is, you can be ready to answer many questions if you actually take some notes and you do some thinking about this whole process. If you do some thinking about your critical moments, as I believe Joe Rogan pointed out, if you're going to make a movie reel of your life, what would that movie reel compile of? And there's going to be impactful moments, hopefully, for you that stick out. You might even solicit some advice from your family and friends to ask them what critical moments you went through. Not to get too much into trauma, but sometimes those really hard times, we kind of we underplay them, we understate them, or we might even subdue them. But these are formative times that can really tell a lot about a person, a lot about character, and a lot about what you bring to the table as a team player, and why you need to be the next hire of this agency, why you need to be the impactful person that they're going to bring on, why you're the best candidate. And that's where you really see people shine in interviews, and you really see people flop in interviews. Most of us, have done some pretty cool things in our life that play into different things. But if you just go off the cuff and you tell us about when you decided if you wanted to take the freeway or follow Waze or route your own way because of high traffic and how you got to work on time, that's not a super cool story, right? But if you were faced with a dilemma that involved a family friend and your own moral compass and how you had to lean in and think about what was most important and how you could keep your friend accountable but not betray trust, and you found out or you found a method to encapsulate all those things through transparent conversation, through going to your friend, through showing support and bring your friend back to, maybe the authority or the authority figure, to clear the air, make them better, make yourself better, and then build on your relationship. Man, wouldn't that be a good oral board answer? So think on that. Do your homework, draft that out, think of your stories as they apply to different things. If you're mindful, if you're thoughtful, if you are putting your head in the game, you're going to think about what a police department might want to ask you about. What would you want a good cop to be really good at? Think of those qualities, write them down, and then make the own questions for yourself. Make the own responses that you have to your questions, right? If off the cuff, I think that some of the most important qualities of being a police officer are strong values, self-assured, self-motivated, strong communicator, open to different ideas and people, then I could easily craft a question for each of those things, and then I can start brainstorming answers for each of those things. You can also just look on the Google machine. Ask the Google machine for some good interview questions, right? Just top interview questions. They don't even have to be police related, but you could look for public safety questions, police questions, just generic questions. If you prepare yourself for 20 to 50 questions, I think you're going to be pretty ready to rock that interview. But if you just shoot from the hip, some people have the gift of the gab. Some people are BS artists, but if anyone's going to be a BS artist detector, I like to think it's going to be someone sitting on a police oral board. All right, on to the next one. It's scenario-based questions. This is a bit more old school. It's a little bit more traditional. I don't like them. We don't really do them at my agency, and I'm going to get into why as well. But I'll explain them because they're still relatively common. And what this is compared to behavior-based, where we're asking you about something you've done, something you've actually experienced, we're going to ask you a hypothetical situation. We're going to ask you about, hey, you're a cop now, fast forward 2 years, here's a scenario, here's the call, or here's the scenario that plays out in front of you. What do you do, and why do you do it? Walk us through that. This can be difficult, especially if someone is not versed in the first responder world, if you don't have any friends or family that are in it, especially if you haven't been around it or you haven't been able to learn that much. Sometimes a lot of our learning comes through the testing process, which is essentially a lot of what this material is for, is trying to give some benefit and some context to those that have no context. Kind of like me when I came in. I had no context, I had no real resources to go to. But really what we're talking about is not having to know the perfect answer, because truth of the matter, if you ask these hypothetical scenarios to 100 cops in a room and they scribble down some notes, they type them out or they write them down on a pad of paper, you're going to get a wide range of answers. You might even have people on the panel debate what a better answer was that day, because we're all different, right? We hear things differently, we see things in our mind differently. But what the exercise is supposed to do is to test your reasoning and your problem-solving abilities. Test the context that you have and how you work off of that context to make a well-informed decision. And ultimately, a lot of the testing is to make sure you stick to it. So what do I mean by that? In traditional oral boards, there is an amount of pressure that they want to put on you to see how steadfast you are, to see if you cave, right? So let's just say you give a fairly decent answer to the scenario, then they might push you, right? They may press you, what about this? What about that? What about the other? And you do see a lot of candidates that aren't prepared kind of waver, and they're like, well, in that scenario, it's hard to say, and I don't know. I think I would do the same thing, or maybe they double down like, yep, no, I'm not changing it under any circumstance. And neither is good, because you're not getting at what they want you to do, which is think through the scenario, use solid reasoning, and articulate your answer. You can have probable cause, which is the legal burden to arrest someone, but you might decide oftentimes, frequently not to, and that's called discretion. You don't know about probable cause, or you might not know about probable cause or discretion until you are a police officer or a recruit that goes through training in some classroom. But that's not the point. They want to see if you can utilize your brain, utilize your life experience and the smarts you have to think through a scenario and articulate, which means to detail how something makes sense. Here's an example I've heard of before from a couple different sources. So all those agencies doing scenario-based questions, you can't be mad because this is not a unique scenario. This is not giving the answer key to your question. You're working patrol, you stop and get a coffee at a convenience store, and another one of your patrol partners stops as well, grab a snack. Now you're paying for the coffee, it's getting all rang up, you use your credit card and you walk towards the door. You hit the whole like ding ding on the pushing door, and then your partner's right behind you holding a bag of chips and a candy bar. And your immediate reaction is that I don't think my partner had time to pay for that candy bar. I didn't hear the register open or close. I didn't hear any scanning of the barcode. My partner didn't pay ahead of me. So now I am concerned, or the board's telling you are concerned that your partner may have taken food without paying for it, either theft or receiving a gratuity. So, what do you do? And you will get responses on one end of the spectrum, maybe pretty brief, but saying that you would not tolerate that type of behavior. That behavior is unacceptable in policing. The public demands more of us, and I would go to my immediate supervisor and I would tell them what I saw and allow them to investigate further. Right? So, what do you think about that answer? Is that a good answer? Is that a great answer? Well, you're listening in to learn, and I'll say that's not a great answer, because what happened there? The respondent, the person answering the question, the interviewee, jumped to quite a number of conclusions. I say confusions, and maybe that's true too. But the answer reflects someone not thinking deeply about the question or what they want to get through, right? Why is, just like all types of questions that we've covered in this series, like why are you being asked this? Is it simply to hear if you have a strong enough awareness of a moral compass that you know stealing is wrong and you should report it if you see it? Well, no, because the question would be different. It would be, hey, your partner stole something in front of you. What do you do? And maybe that's a different question, right? But in this scenario, you were told you are under the belief that your partner may have stolen something, and you're actually under the belief that it's more likely than not. And I don't want that verbiage to make you think of legal stuff, but just think about the question. So, what is your reasoning? How can you show your reasoning? And your answer might actually take a pause. Like I've said before, it's perfectly appropriate to take a pause, clarify the question, and then go forward and start detailing your thought process in a clear, organized, calm way. So a better response would outline the different factors in the prompt. You would walk through out loud that you recognize the different possibilities, right? You're under the belief that it could have happened, but that's a big deal if you make the accusation. You want to face something head on. You want to verify yourself before jumping to a conclusion. And you're going to take ownership at your level if you can. So that might be literally explaining that you would go to your partner, you would feel it out, you'd have the conversation, say, hey, I could be totally off base and forgive me, but I know this is a big deal. So I heard and saw this. I wasn't under the impression that you could have paid. So I just want to talk to you about it. And through that conversation, if it was a miscommunication or misunderstanding, then that's something I could learn about. That's something I could be open to. However, if the conversation went a certain way that it was clear that my partner said, yeah, I took it, it's not a big deal, and I knew that it was either stealing or bribery, then my next course would be to invite and bring in my partner to go to the boss together. Again, I want to show support to my partner. There might be other circumstances I'm not really aware of, but It's not something I could just let lay because it is a big deal. And if my partner wasn't down for that, then ultimately I have to do what I have to do. I have to uphold my obligations, my ethics, my oath to the badge of the community. And I would go to my boss. If my partner's not willing to be there with me, then I got to do what I got to do. And that's the right thing to do. So, here's a difference there. The first one, the interviewer jumped right to a conclusion. Super short. You can't really hear what the processing is going on in the head. This job's complicated, right? It's a thinking officer's game. Now more than ever in the last couple of years. You can't just take something at face value. You can't just do things because you can. Because can is different than should. And you got to do things because they're truly necessary. And they're truly reasonable. But just to go back to the system of questions, I mentioned that I wasn't really a fan myself. And I believe the reason why is because there's such a range of play. It's pretty subjective. I mean, a lot of the oral boards are, but as I explained earlier, you could have a whole room of cops looking for what they think is the best, perfect answer. And you could have a bunch of different cops answer a prompt pretty well, but go a lot of different directions. So it makes it a lot harder to prepare for. It also just makes it harder to, I believe, use that to assess someone's suitability. Really, it could come down to someone that just knows more police or knows more of the police culture that can say some things that sound pretty good. But at the end of the day, perhaps why I just don't like them as much is because they play on what you would do, could do, but truly haven't done. Whereas the other things, why you want to be a cop, the basic kind of questions, and then behavior-based, that's you're making inferences based on something that someone has actually done and has actually demonstrated to project how they might actually be. So it is a matter of opinion. But that is the breakdown for the last couple main types of questions that you'll encounter. So to summarize it all, take the time, practice, take notes, generate your ideas, generate your themes, what makes you you when you talk about branding. And some of these big ticket stories, these experiences, these challenges that you've encountered, which are really at the end of the day what makes you unique and what makes you an asset. And if you've taken the time to explore this and practice this, then you can show exactly that you are an asset. All right, I hope this episode and the others in the series were helpful. Happy to hear what you'd like to hear about next, whether it's more the story time stuff, whether it's issues in policing, or things more wellness-based, fitness, nutrition, contending with shift work, mental health awareness. I'm game for all of it, so shoot me a line in the comments, send me a message on Instagram, Blue Grit Wellness, check out the blog, and we will catch you next time.